us know we're live.
It should be good.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to call the October 2nd, 2025 VPRA board meeting to order. And we will begin with our safety briefing. Lamar.
All right, Madam Chair, Executive Director, members of the board, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's begin our briefing. We are located at 919 East Main Street on the 4th floor. If you exit left around the corner to your left, it's the women's restroom. If you exit right around the corner to your right, it's the men's restroom. There's a fire, there's a stairwell, and a fire alarm near each restroom. There's a fire extinguisher across from the women's restroom. If you go down the hall from the women's restroom, there's a fire extinguisher to your right. For our safety assignments, when I call your name, please raise your hand. Mary Stella Douglas will call 911. Backup, Michael Westerman. I, Lamar Bates, will do CPR. Backup, Joan Vermont. Mike McLaughlin will lead the first responders. Oh, sorry, let's see. All right, backup, DJ Stadler. There's an AED at the security desk. There's a first aid kit on a table against the wall. If there's a fire, we will evacuate their stairwells. Now, if we must evacuate, ensure the person to your left is present at our assembly point at the George Washington statue of North 9th and Capitol Square. All right, if you see something, say something. Contact building security, call 911. If there's an active shooter, flee, hide, or fight. For those participating virtually, be aware of phishing emails and scams. Know your medical emergency and evacuation strategies. Do you have any questions? All right, let's have a safe day. And once again, watch out for tripping hazards as well. Thank you.
With that, our agenda item number 3 says welcome from your chair. So I just want to say welcome, thank you for being here this morning, and thank you to all of you who joined us for our board dinner. We haven't had the opportunity to do that since I've been the chair. So we missed a couple of you who couldn't make it, but we're glad you did this morning. It was a nice time for all. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Estelle so we can kick this meeting off with our roll call attendance.
Ms. Boucher? Here. Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Ms. Richards? Mr. Richards?
Here.
Mr. November?
Here.
Ms. Dorsch? Here. Ms. Drake? Here. Mr. Flowers?
Here.
Mr. Jordan?
Here.
Ms. Lawrence? Here. Mr. Meister?
Here.
Mr. Payne? Ms. Reinhardt? Here. Ms. Spears? Here. Mr. Ryan?
Here.
And now we'll move to agenda item number 5, which is public comment, but I do not believe we have anyone signed up for public comment. Is that right? I do want to mention that I spoke to a gentleman this week from Hampton Roads who originally signed up to provide public comment. But our communications team, I think Jared had Courtney reached out to make sure he knew where to come for a meeting and make sure he had all the information. And in that conversation, we realized that there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. He wanted to comment because he misunderstood that, thinking there was going to be no continued service to Hampton Roads during the Long Bridge construction window. And we explained that that was inaccurate. And so I followed up just to make sure he had all his questions answered. And first of all, I wanted to compliment the communications team because he went overboard saying that you guys did a really great job explaining and sent him everything he needed. And second of all, I just wanted to make sure that the board knows we're working really, really hard. And we're going to talk about this later in today's meeting, but the comms team and DJ are kind of meeting with a lot of people and making sure that our message is kind of on point and accurate to make sure the public understands what the interruptions will be during Long Bridge construction. So there's that. Moving on from public comment, I will ask for a motion to approve the August 26, 2025 VPRA meeting minutes. Thank you, Ms. Dorsch. Do I have a second? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Delongo. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The meeting minutes are approved. And we will move to agenda item number 7. And I believe Bonnie is going to talk to us about our audit results. Yes.
I think our auditor, Mr. Dwight Barber, is still making his way to the building, so hopefully he will be here shortly. That's okay, because I've got a couple of things that I can go over, so. Good morning. How are you? For anybody that I have not officially met, my name is Bonnie Height. I am the Director of Accounting here at VPRA. I've worked with Steve since April of 2022, so he is definitely missed at this particular point in time. And just today, we're just going to provide you a report of our FY25 financial statements and the subsequent audit results. We typically have our team from PV Mayors here. They're not here yet. They will be here soon. If you haven't had the chance to read over all 90 pages of the thrilling page turner that is the financial statements, it's okay. We've got you covered. We're going to go over some key takeaways today so that you just have a high-level, overview of what happened. So in just a moment, hopefully Dwight will be here soon. If not, I can go first and then we can move on to his presentation because he does have some required communications that's part of the audit that he has to do, okay? But before I do want to take a minute to say thank you to literally every department within VPRA because all of them, they all contributed to the production of these financial statements. From the project managers who helped us get all the estimates for the project expenses, all the way to the comms team who developed the beautiful financial report cover. Everybody contributed to this. It was an absolute team effort. We would not have been able to do it without them, and we just want to say thank you. But I also want to give a very special shout out to our finance team who is sitting right over there. We are less one person who is on well as our PTO today, but as you all know, we are short-staffed, maybe a smidge. But we were able to get everything completed in time just for Steve Pitter to be able to sign off on it for his last official act as CFO, as you guys saw when you received the email. So we were very happy that we were able to get that completed in time for that. And then that way he kind of put his thumbprint on that last set of financial statements with our very clean audit for the 5th year in a row. So we were really happy about that. So typically I would send it over to Dwight. Dwight's not here, so we're going to go through just a couple of things that I want you guys to take a look at and draw your attention to when it comes to the financials. Next slide, please. So it was completed. It was on time. They did express an unmodified opinion, which is code for clean audit. And it was issued as of September 30th for the 2nd year in a row. This is a good thing for us because the first 3 years that we were in operations, we did not get it done on time for the September 30th deadline. And for the past 2 years, we've been able to get that done. So we were really happy about that. We did have a single audit that was performed this year. And what that means is that we had federal expenditures this year, okay? So we had 5 federal programs that we actually had that we did some federal expenditures with. We had to have an audit. The OMB has not issued their official advice, their official guidance for 2025. So the auditors did the audit based on 2024 guidance. Once that 2025 guidance has been received, we will be able to finish up everything and get those opinions issued. I don't foresee there being any issues, but as soon as those are given by the auditors, we will certainly pass them up to the board. Okay? Any questions about that? There's only so much I can answer because I don't control the OMB. Sorry. And then also the last thing that we were able to do is one of the things you're going to notice in this year's financial statements is that the presentation is a little bit different than in prior years. And that is really because we were working to make sure we were compliant with GFOA best practice. GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association. I'm sure you guys have heard Steve talk about this the past few years. This was something he really wanted us to make sure we tried to get done. We were able to at least put together the statements so that they were compliant with that, and we will be submitting for that certification. It's essentially a certificate of excellence in financial reporting. VRE gets it. A bunch of the other authorities get it, so we want to make sure that we are compliant in that manner as well. Any questions about that? Excellent. Next slide. Okay, so just a couple of key changes that I would like to just draw the board's attention to. The statement of net position is just a fancy word for balance sheets. Assets and liabilities.
So we did have a couple of new lines that I wanted to make sure you guys saw. So we did have a line for due from federal this year, which essentially means that we had some federal expenditures that we recorded that we have not yet received reimbursement from the government. So we probably already got that actually in July or August, so that those should be cleared. A couple of the big changes were really in relation to the 2 big agreements that happened in FY25. So you guys will remember the transaction with Norfolk Southern for the M-line purchase, and then the subsequent swap for the Seminary Yard and B-line. And then also the agreement with VRE for VRE to purchase Seminary Yard, Broad Run Corridor, platform easements, etc. So some of our additional lines were actually in relation to all of those. So assets held for sale, those are the assets we will be conveying over to VRE once that transaction completes. And then the deposit on sale of assets and the liabilities, also part of the VRE. So that's the $26 million that they gave us, that we have not conveyed them any assets, so we have to hold it as a liability on our books. We had a big increase in rail infrastructure and lands. We bought a lot of land and rail infrastructure for the island. Our construction in progress, you're going to hear about that a lot. You've probably heard about this all year long, right? So like at every board meeting, we've been talking about all the work that we've been doing. That is just reflected here in the additional CIP that happens, roughly $221.9 million. We did put 2 subscriptions into service. So we bought a couple of information systems. So one was Kahua, our project management information system. The other one was FlareDocs, which is a right-of-way acquisition software. So those 2 increased those lines as well. And then that last liability line, that's the $42 million that we have left to pay to Norfolk Southern, which we anticipate in August 2027. Any questions about that, you guys? Perfect. Next slide, please. These are just a couple of slides just to show you some of the changes over the course of the past 3 or 4 years. Essentially, our net position continues to go up. We anticipate that's going to happen just because we keep building assets. And as long as we are building them responsibly and managing our liabilities accordingly, we should be good to go. Our quick ratio did dip this year down to 4. That's just because of the reduction in cash, because we treated our current asset for a long-term asset. That's all there is to it. But we still have enough liquid assets to cover our current liabilities 4 times over. So I don't anticipate any issues with that. Next slide, please. All right, so statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. These are just a couple of the key changes that I wanted you guys to be aware of. Again, this is just a fancy term for income statement. It's just your revenues and expenses. So we did have a big increase in other Commonwealth of Virginia contributions. And really it was just an adjustment in FY25. It was scheduled. So it was our additional FredEx contribution from VDOT, which we got $80 million this year versus $15 million in FY24. And then some also additional money from the Priority Transportation Fund. All of this was on schedule. We anticipated it being this way. And just for a couple of things, these are a couple of things I wanted to make sure you guys knew. So federal grant funds, that's the new line that we recorded this year, $44 million. We did have to record on paper a loss on the disposal of assets when we did the swap of the V line from the Seminary Yard, because we had some assets that we were building up at that particular point in time that are no longer going to be of any service utility to us, right? But obviously the M line was a huge investment that has a significant long-term benefit. This is a 1-year loss to get us to Christiansburg faster, better, more efficient, and at less cost to the taxpayer. Any questions about that? Okay.
Yes, just one question. Can I understand the revenues we receive from FredEx, right?
Yes.
It's bigger than last year, but not bigger than anticipated. Is it going to be a regular amount every year?
We actually got our last draw of FredEx just today. So that was $92 million that we received from them today. And that was the last based on the agreement that we have with VDOT for that.
And these are toll revenues from the I-95?
Yes, right. Yes. Yeah, it's a toll facility, yes. Yeah, I thought it was something additional to the toll facility, but it's not. It's just the toll facility.
And you said it right, if I may, for I-95, there's additional revenue that we plan on from I-66, and that's revenue that we're actually going to put out to get debt against. But that's a different arrangement with VDOT than this.
Okay, so what is it?
It's not something that's going to continue. So once we get this last contribution that we just got this week from FredEx, we will not receive anything else from that.
Okay, we take as revenues and spend it. We're not bonding against it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So over the course of time, this is just what our net position looks like. It's been positive every year. We anticipate that to continue as long as we continue to build assets and keep our liabilities in check. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows a composition of our revenues over the course of, I did FY22 to FY25 because 21 was kind of an anomaly because we had that weird, like, where we brought over the Commonwealth of Virginia contribution. But I think it's just important to note that like operating revenues in the Commonwealth Rail Fund, relatively flat. They're gonna stay like within an average that we anticipate. Things like other Commonwealth of Virginia revenues and contributions from funding partners, those are going to fluctuate just based on whatever agreements are happening at that particular point in time. Our investment revenues did go down a little bit this year, and that's mostly due. The interest rates obviously went down a smidge, but it's mostly due because we didn't have as much cash on hand because we bought the airline. So that was the reason for that. And then the federal grant source is a new source this year. Yes, ma'am.
What is our Amtrak revenue? Is that under operating revenue?
That's operating revenue.
And that's down? No. Yes.
Well, it's 16% of our overall revenue composition this year.
Okay, 16%, but okay,
Right.
and then we got 23, 15, and 11%.
Yeah, because that was our first year. That was FY22. That was our first full year of operations here. Any other questions, you guys? Okay. Then I'm going to bring up Mr. Dwight Berrecker, who just came screaming in. If you could go back a few slides. This is Dwight Berrecker. He is with PD Mayors, which is our external audit firm. You have to come on. So I started.
Could I ask you
He's with our external audit.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
ask a question, please?
Okay.
The 4 federal programs, what projects are they related to?
So it was the Fed State Partnership with Longbridge. It was the Chrissy Grant with Ettrick and the Newport News Station, which we passed through the Newport News, right? It was Fastlane and DRP and DC to RVA, right? And we actually had 5 because I forgot about CMAC with VDOT. So, and that was actually to pay for the additional trains on Route 47 and Route 51, right? Route 47 and Route 51.
Operating costs.
And a portion of that was federal dollars.
Have we already, how much of those funds have we received?
$44 million overall in federal grant.
And the expectation is how much more?
For $1 billion.
Certainly find out. We will get back to you.
It'll be $1 billion. And so we'll talk a little bit more. We've got more CMAQ money coming for fourth track, and we'll be asking you to approve that agreement with VDOT later today.
Okay.
We're also working with the FRA to get the $100 million for the bypass that will be coming into this next year's, or I guess the current 26 financial statements.
Okay.
But overall, we've got over $1 billion worth of federal fund.
So we don't anticipate any problem. I guess I'm directing the question about where we stand with Congress and what they're doing to us. Yeah, suppose it goes to 30, 45 days.
Concerned about the amount of time between reimbursement.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
We are monitoring that very, very closely. And at least the contributions that we've received thus far, they've been clearing within 30 days, no more than 40 days, I think. So far, we have not seen any issues or any stalwarts there.
That's a little early. But
It is a little early, but that's where I can only give the information I have on me today. So that's where we stand. But it is something that we're monitoring very closely.
Yeah, and it's hard to put a date on it. I mean, if you're 6 months into it, I think we're having a very different conversation at this meeting.
Yeah.
But if it's 30, 60, we don't envision any impact. We certainly don't envision any impact on rail service because Amtrak has got rail service, and the Amtrak side, Bruno's got the line. We're okay.
We've got 90 days.
Right.
well, the biggest thing I'm worried about is some of our contractors that get reimbursed or get paid. And we get out beyond the 30 day, they're going to start screaming.
Yeah, no, not within 30 days. But I think, as Bruno points out, come 90, we're going to have some conversations about cash management if we're not getting reimbursed. And a lot of the folks at the FRA are still working because they're not funded by the appropriated funds. So again, as Bonnie points out, we're continuing to get reimbursed. That said, we're watching very closely.
We would not curtail the service until about 90
90 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So we're back to give his required presentation.
Thank you, Bonnie. Well, I think Bonnie stole all my thunder, so we'll go through my presentation. It's not as exciting as what she had, but next slide, please. So just to introduce myself, I'm Dwight Berrecker. I serve as the audit partner on the engagement, also part of our team. Mike Garber He's our government niche team leader. He's the concurring reviewer. Every report that we issue from PB Mayors has to have 2 sets of reviews. So Mike is that final reviewer before we can release our financial statements. Tyler Farnsworth, the director, he was the one that kind of managed the day-to-day operations, does all the work. I just get to show up and present to you guys. So next slide. In the report, there are 2 opinions. Both opinions are unmodified. There's an opinion on the financial statements themselves. They're located on pages 9 through 11. If you have the financials in front of you, that's the highest opinion that we can issue as auditors. It's one of the only pages in the report that belong to us. No items to report as required by gas standards to follow. That opinion is also unmodified, and that's on pages 80 and 81. The gas opinion speaks to internal controls of the entity. We didn't have any, when we did our testing, all controls were operating appropriately, things of that nature. So the audits were completed as planned. Not a lot of significant changes to the approach we use from our planning phases. The one item that would like to point out, the financials, they were issued on September 30th this year. Just the date it was due to the APA, but we kind of wrapped things up earlier, just going through final reviews, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that's just to commit staff here. They kind of get put behind the 8 ball a little bit. We don't receive all the information we need from the state to wrap up the audit until mid-August. Yeah. So there's some reporting that comes out that results in some significant adjustments and things that they have to go through, staff does, in order to finalize the financial statements. So to turn things around in that 30-day period, that's just an accomplishment by them. Also this year with the federal funding that Bonnie mentioned, there is a single audit report that is still outstanding. OMB has not issued their final guidance that we have to follow. It's in draft format, and until those standards have been released, we can't finish the single audit work. But as of now, based on the draft compliance supplement, things of that nature that has been provided, we don't see any issues, but we just have to wait until we get the final guidance to finish that work. With the government being shut down, not sure when we may see that. So it could be next month, could be towards the end of the year. So there is one other report that we issue, an examination related to VRS compliance that centered around your pension plan, the state plan, things of that nature. So next slide. These items Bonnie already touched on, but I'll kind of highlight them. As she mentioned, net position increased $361 million this year. Our unrestricted net position was kind of available to us to spend, $570 million. Do have some restrictions on some of our funding, $50 million, and that's related to source of our revenue received. And then net investment in capital assets, that represents the infrastructure, CIP, right to use leased assets, things of that nature, was $1.2 billion at the end of the year. This just summarizes some of the significant estimates that are in the financial statements that as auditors, we have to audit and make sure we're in agreement with those estimates. Not going to read all those, but those are the ones, those are the significant ones that we have to take into consideration each year. As part of our audit, there were no audit adjustments. So again, great job by staff. Very frequently do we have audits where we don't have some adjustments, but they did a great job again this year. So some of the items that we're required to communicate to the board are listed here. Accounting policies and practices, adoptions of new accounting policies. There was one new standard that we had to implement this year. GASB 101 relates to how you calculate compensated absences, which relates to leave time, sick time, things of that nature, and the liability that we have to put. Didn't really have a significant impact on the financials once we went through that calculation, or once management did. So next slide, please. There was no disagreements with management. We didn't consult with any other accountants in order to complete the audit work. Staff at VPRA, they did hire an outside consultant related to the M1 transaction. EOY, they were valuation analysts that helped with that transaction that we had to get an understanding for and audit as part of the audit. But we, PB Mayors, didn't consult with any other accountants. No significant issues discussed with management or difficulties in performing the audit. And then there is, included in our package, there is the engagement letter and representation letter that we issue as part of our audit. Next slide. Other areas, audit judgment, broader legal activities. We weren't made aware of anything of that nature. Independence was maintained throughout the audit. We did issue a management letter. And I just want to point out the couple recommendations that were in the letter have already been addressed by the management at VPRA related to some IT work that we did. As part of the engagement last year, there were 14 items that came up in that process. All 14 of those items have been addressed. There was only 2 that kind of lingered into this fiscal year, but they've already addressed those issues and have taken care of those items. So, next slide. Again, just want to thank the VPRA finance team, DJ, Bonnie, their staff. Don't see Steve here. He's retired now. They do a great job in preparing for the audit. And like I said, with some of the reporting that doesn't get released to them until mid to late August, really puts us in a time crunch to be able to meet that September 30th deadline of the APA. And they were able to do that. So we appreciate it. Any questions for me?
All right. If you guys have any questions, if you want to dig into the detail and geek out with me on financial statements, I'm happy to do so. Just reach out to me and that's enough. Thanks very much.
Thank you. With that, we will move right into agenda item number 8, and I'll turn it over to our executive director for his report.
Sure, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming this morning. We're going to do a brief executive director's report this morning because we sent out the September item a week ago. We're getting to the point of the month where a lot of it's old data, and I don't want to refresh all data, but that shouldn't keep you from asking questions. If you have any questions, just the chair started off praising our communication team. You're going to hear a lot of that today because we have a lot of outward-facing work that's going on. And here you see they do pop-ups and just continue to try to educate the public on what changes they're going to see. Here you see we're promoting safety, and we're working with the state police. Trucking Safety Month was September. Our governor did a proclamation of Rail Safety Month, and we've really had a lot of interaction with the public, just talking about the importance of rail safety. As I think we're all aware, the railroad is a very unforgiving industry, and there are so many distractions that we all are subject to, whether they're earphones or phones or people are in a rush. You've got to be careful when you're anywhere near train tracks to be safe and to make safe decisions. And the team has done a great job of going out and reinforcing that message. So kudos to them for the time they spend. And we just get incredible feedback from the public about those events. In addition, just a shout out, we did win Amtrak Virginia One Supplier of the Year from the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging and Travel Association. So we had 1.4 million riders that kind of helped bring tourism and economic development to the Commonwealth, and we're recognized for that. So congratulations to the team for that. This came out last month to the EMS. We got the submittals for our enterprise asset management system. As we've talked about in the past, and Bonnie alluded to it in the financial statements, part of our mission is to buy and own capital assets, and we are the railroad owner. We own the maintenance and the upkeep responsibility. That transitions to us in the next few years as all these construction projects are done, and we need to make sure that we as an entity have a management system that says, here's how many switches we own, and here is the last time the switch was upgraded, here's when it was placed, et cetera. Anybody that's been a major railroad or major infrastructure operation knows that the validity of that data or the accuracy of that data is so critical to making sure that you have a good railroad. So we're starting that process now of putting that system in place so we can get the information from Norfolk Southern and CSX and have that in good shape for when we take over the maintenance. These are the 26 organizational goals, my goals, the goals of the organization. We present these every month, as you know, and we give you an update of where we are on track. These goals started on October 1st, and we're on the 7th. We've not completed a single one, so sorry about that. As we go through, we'll continue to track how things are going. And in the last meeting, we went through these in pretty good detail. We spent over an hour on these goals. But any questions on these? Okay. All right, passenger service updates. This is the ridership from the month of August, but we continue to see good news. We saw a 9% increase in ridership across Virginia, which continues to show that if we put the trains in place, people will ride them. We'll talk later about proposed service changes for Longbridge, and one of our biggest concerns is balancing the ability of our construction team to get the capital work done with our desire to continue to keep people off the road. What we don't want to do is build a brand new bridge and then add new trains, and no one wants to ride them because they're so disgusted with what the train service has been in the past 5 years. So that balance is important. You'll see, I think, as we go forward, how that construction impacts our ridership, and we're going to be very nimble and make changes if we need to make changes. But so far through August, we continue to see strong ridership. Here's the ridership broken out route by route. It's good news across the board, and it continues to be, which is great. Overall, FY 25 to 24, we saw almost a 5% increase across the board. This is indicative of what we see across the country, but Virginia continues to be a leader in ridership and ridership increases. We're really setting the bar pretty high for everybody else. One of the things that we do that we don't talk about a lot, Virginia, Jeremy talks about it in his presentation just about at every board meeting, but Jeremy does not have a slot today. So I just wanted to bring up, we are the only state that Amtrak deals with that has a customer service standard program. And we put this in place over the last couple of years to make sure that, yes, the trains are running, but if customers are not getting the experience that they deserve, that they pay for, and actually that we pay for as well, it's not a success for us. And so the Amtrak team worked with us. We developed a set of standards with metrics that say, okay, here's what you're meeting, here's what you're not meeting. We go out and we do 60 to 70 inspections every month. Everyone on our team has an app on their phone. So if they're riding a train for business or riding a train for personal reasons, they can say, hey, the announcements were really good. Wow, the trash can was full. I went to the station and the PA system was broken. All of that feedback comes in, and we rate Amtrak on how they're going. You have to count it yourself, but when we first started this program, they were compliant on about 4 out of 15 of the measures, and you look now, they've got almost all of them. So they've really been great partners on this. And if you talk to the folks that are on the train, the onboard service folks, they really like this. I mean, they don't see this as a, hey, I got you, you're doing something wrong. They see this as an ability for them to go to their leadership and say, look, we've had Wi-Fi issues on this train, over and over again. The only way to make the Wi-Fi better is to address the equipment on the train. There's something broken, we've got to fix it. Additionally, they real time, if there's a PA broken, we'll bring it to their attention. They'll say, well, we didn't know you couldn't hear us in the fourth car, and they'll fix it right there. It's just been an incredibly positive program to keep the customer satisfaction as high as it can be. I mentioned earlier, we're the only state that has it. With great power comes great responsibility. We've had other states just inundate us with, hey, come talk to our state. How can we put this in place for us? Jeremy and Ashwini have done a great job. They've presented at the State Amtrak Intercity Passenger Rail Committee, and this is something that I think we will see as a country roll out more in the future. Any questions on this? I know we don't talk a lot about it.
Who's filling out the survey, customers or staff?
So for this data, we have one person who rides the trains pretty much nonstop and fills out surveys, and then anyone on staff that is riding fills it out as well. And it's interesting to compare the information that we get with some of the customer service surveys that Amtrak gets. I mean, sometimes they're aligned, sometimes they're a little bit off. We ask a lot more detail than that. And here, I talked about this a little bit earlier. You can see our train, Virginia trains, our ridership per train is higher than some of the other big states, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, et cetera. Continues to be a trend. We've been ahead of the other states for the last few years, and we don't envision that changing. Cost recovery, Dwight and Bonnie talked about this. We did get our final books closed September 30th. Steve signed it and then went out the door. We achieved a cost recovery of 76%, which is a good number for any public transportation. If you look at buses or subway, you're not going to get that high. We're comfortable with 76%, but we want to continue to bring that higher. Cost recovery is basically what we pull in from the passenger revenue compared to what it costs. In a perfect world, you would make more money on revenue than you spend on expenses, but in public transportation, we're comfortable if that's not the case. We would love for that to be the case in a couple of years, but that's continued progress. Here's the operations, but yeah.
Yes, Bruno, where Amtrak is for Northeast Corridor for their cost recovery.
We're at about right now. We just closed the books, and I think we're almost at 84.
Okay. And the national network is much, much lower.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's not 84.
It's not. The long distance service in the 30s. That's for most of the loss. It's that high, yeah.
I think we knew them, Bruno.
We expect it to, we expect to be at net zero or at 100% by the end of 28.
You were close to 99% pre-pandemic,
right? Right. We should be by the end of 90, but by the end of 28, we should be back at an operating loss of zero.
Do we ever compare ourselves, like we have the different states? Do we ever look at California's rail? What is it?
Yeah, California's, I think it's,
we're proud of our 76. We like all the other states, and we're proud of the 76.
It's among the states. It's the top.
Yes, I didn't want to say that because they're all doing a good job. They're all doing a good job. We're all in this together. We're proud of our 76.
You're our favorite state, DJ.
No. Get that in writing. It's been tough work windows there. And just further into that. So here, and I don't want to go line, but if you want to go line by line, you're welcome to. But this chart shows you the revenue. So our budget, the operating revenues, this is just what comes in from train operations. You can see how our revenue was higher than what we budgeted and our expenses were lower than what we budgeted. So just on those two pieces, we were pretty close to break even. And then you've got to add all the marketing and other things. But this is what feeds into the 76%. Every single line item we look at on how we can boost revenue, and that Haley and her team work on marketing. We go out and we do, we go to like festivals and say, hey, ride Amtrak. We have a lot of public events that encourage folks to ride the train. And we also work with the operations team on, okay, how can we with Amtrak get the cost down? How can we become more efficient? How can we share costs? There's really a lot of work that goes into it. But as you can see, 76, we're really proud of the 76%. Here's the breakout by route. We include this every month just for your information. It's pretty straightforward, and thankfully it doesn't fluctuate all that much. So how we pay for train operations, last month Ashwini did a presentation on how the 209 agreement works. Just as a reminder, PRIA was passed in 2008, and what that said is that all states need to pay for their Amtrak service. Through the course of the last decade, the 209 policy, so it's under section 209 of that code, it created the state-supported service. And there's a 209 methodology that comes through and says, okay, if you want to run this many trains, here's how much you're going to have to pay. And it really goes into a lot of detail. We have an annual agreement with them, knock on wood, that starts every October, ends in September. That becomes a little painful because the numbers are not always available, and we frequently have to extend the previous year's agreement while we're finalizing numbers. And in fact, right now we're at the 6th of October and we're still working on last year's agreement. So we're close to being ready to sign the next agreement. What we're looking to do now is sign a long-term agreement with them that will cover all of the basics of our relationship. And then just every year the numbers would change. What we're looking to get today from you all is to give me the authority to sign that long-term agreement. We have the FY26 numbers. They're not final, but they're really, really close. If you looked at the chart before, last year we were right in the just over 90 on revenue, just over 90 on expenses. We expect that to be the same. In fact, the estimate as of this morning was total costs of $92.8 million and total revenue of $91.9. So they're right balanced. We would hope that you would grant me the authority to enter into that agreement over the next couple of weeks as those numbers are finalized. And then, of course, we can send it out to you. The agreement itself was sent out to you in advance. It's longer than Bonnie's financial statements, so we can read hers first. But we would like to request approval to allow me to enter into that agreement. Mr. Westerman, anything I missed or anything you want to add? Putting you on the spot.
So just the bottom bullet, we're the first in the country to do a long-term agreement. Amtrak does annual agreements with every state. There's an appetite from our end to do a long-term agreement because eventually we're going to use the ticket revenue to go through financing. And so it looks good to potential creditors. So we have a long-term agreement to get that revenue stream in the door. So We're locking in that contractual right by doing this agreement, so it's going to help our program immensely.
And that was Mr. Westman's idea, and Amtrak wasn't a huge fan of it at first, but he showed them the compelling argument for why we should have it. And if that is approved and goes forward, it's going to be a huge win for us. Amtrak will probably then look at all the other states and they'll say, well, why don't we have this? So it will change the way they really have agreements with the states, which is good. We shouldn't be spending 3 months a year negotiating a contract with Amtrak. We should be spending 3 months every 10 years, and then the rest of the time actually making the service better. And then this is yet another step.
So just to clarify, today, we will be voting to authorize you to execute the FY26 agreement that is in this new long-term agreement structured form. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. And then each year we amend the amendments for a new fiscal year. Will come back to the board because the cost will be over 50 million in any given year.
Thank you.
So the long-term agreement is just going to set the parameters that will carry from year to year. And it's not explicitly setting a number of years in the term.
Yeah, you're right. It sets the frame. You said that much more succinctly than I did.
Yeah. Other question, what are any of the downsides? What are the cons to doing this?
Well, the con would be, I don't know of any con, meaning it locks us into using Amtrak as a provider, but we're locked into Amtrak as a provider anyway as part of our overall deal. The numbers, as the senator pointed out, the numbers will change every year, and it's part of the policy. The computer just spits out the numbers. So there's really not a downside.
TJ, I think the best point, are the times going to line up with this agreement so that this long-term agreement will overlap with how long the exclusivity agreement is that we have for Amtrak's service as a vendor to the authority?
We're beholden to Amtrak for 40 years, starting back in 2021. This agreement will not, I guess it could go that long, but it's not contemplated. We will have to refresh this and just make sure that all the parameters make sense. So I guess my answer is no, but it could be extended.
Okay. But it's so the exclusivity agreement that we have in terms of Amtrak being our service provider is longer than whatever this would be. Right?
This will not go past that.
One final question. In terms of Michael's thing about we want to bond against the ticket revenues, we've already gotten Amtrak to give us the ticket revenues, not just a credit, right?
That's correct.
All right, but this is just in addition, like belt and suspenders?
Right.
Because the biggest hurdle was getting the revenue so we could bond against them?
By far. And this will just get us out of any criticism, and we've not heard this criticism, any criticism that says, well, wait a second, you've only got an agreement with them to get this revenue through next September. What happens October 1st? And we say, well, we'll extend the agreement like we have every year in the last 10 years. This gives us more. The agreement continues.
Potentially lowering our finance costs because lower risk.
That would be our hope. Definitely lowering the risk, for sure.
Good job, Michael.
But the minutes reflect, good job, Michael. That's absolutely right.
Any more questions? With that, I would request a motion to approve authorization for the executive director to execute the new FY26 Amtrak 209 revised agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just 5 minutes, Michael Westerman was really a huge part of this, but Jeremy Ashwini and the team really have worked with Amtrak to get them comfortable with this as well. So there are more people than Michael to recognize, but it's a good thing for us and it's a good thing for Amtrak. Capital project updates. Normally I would punt this over to Mike to do this section. I am going to take it myself because after this item, we're going to do a more detailed construction updates, which Mike will be leading. So I am going to run through this. I reserve the right, if you ask me a question and I look like a deer in the headlights, I may look over to Mike and he's going to jump up, but I feel pretty good about this. First and foremost, we talked about communications team. We have a lot of links in this month's report and we have a lot of videos that we're not going to play today. However, we are going to take those links and we're going to put them in the chat area of the YouTube video. These meetings live on forever on the internet. And so we'll put them in the chat so you can reference them there. And then we'll also email all these links out to all of you so you have access to them. You can share them with whoever you want. The first one you're going to see, this is a construction disruptions map. The team has put in place a map of our entire project area that is interactive and allows folks to click and say, okay, I'm a boater. I know there's construction going on Long Bridge South. What impact will I see, if any, during this time frame? You can click right on the river and it'll say, oh, there's a marine warning. There's going to be equipment there, but during these dates, it probably won't be in the river, so you should be fine. During these dates, it'll be there. Long Bridge North, click on it. Oh, Main Avenue is going to have a lane closed from this date to this date, so it gives the public an interactive way to look at how their commute, how their traffic flow, both on land and on water, is going to be impacted. We piloted it. We did it internally. Jerica and her team had very thick skin because a lot of us were, I don't say, we had a lot of constructive feedback for it, and it's really in a good place now. We're comfortable releasing it. So I know Jerica got a little PTSD there, but I mean, it's out there and people use it, and it's a good tool. So we'll send you the link for that. Update on Franklin Springfield bypass. We have the final 100% design, and we are reviewing that. We've started construction on the shoe fly already. We've got some pictures that show that, and we continue to be on schedule to get this done in 2029. Here is some of the outreach I talked about earlier that the communications team has done to let them know, hey, here's what's going to happen in your neighborhood. Here's when you're going to see some changes. The good news is on this project, there's not a lot of traffic change because it's written in an area where there aren't any roads. I mean, it's thankfully pretty far away from neighborhoods, all things considered. We've got the neighborhood right by the Springfield Metro that will be bringing equipment through. But other than that, this one doesn't have that big of an impact. I will point out, I mentioned this earlier, as part of our funding plan back in 2020 and 2021, VDOT agreed to give us basically $70 million worth of CMAQ funding. And CMAQ is congestion mitigation funding. That comes from the federal government, flows through state transportation entities. We have an agreement with VDOT where we're going to get 70 million. 56 comes from the government, and the other 14 is going to be provided by VDOT as our non-federal match. We're asking today for you all to authorize me to sign the agreement with the FRA to take that $56 million. It's revenue that's going to come in and go right to our projects. We're going to ask for that to be approved today. And then this afternoon, because that's over $50 million, this afternoon, I'm going to email you a notice to approve a second agreement, which is an agreement between us and VDOT to take that other $14 million. So that's the whole 70. This is the agreement with FRA. This allows us to accept $56 million to go to the projects. And then this afternoon, I'll send you one that's only for $14 million. That one you don't need to vote on. You just need to be aware of it. I wanted to talk about it first before I sent you the notification, just because it's confusing. Wait, this is CMAQ. This was CMAQ yesterday. But bottom line is, we're looking for approval today. The total will be $70 million that we will get through congestion mitigation funding. This has been in plan for a long, long time. We're finally getting it to us, and we'll have it to reimburse programs.
DJ, from an accounting perspective for Bonnie's team, do we consider our CMAQ funds other Commonwealth sources, or are they considered federal sources, right? Because they just kind of might fall into a little bit of a gray area.
I get the deer in the headlight and go to Mike, but I'm going to Bonnie.
It depends on the split. So VDOT typically tells us if it's 80% federal, 20% state. If it's the state funds, that goes into other than Commonwealth of Virginia contributions. If it's federal, it goes into federal funding.
Okay.
So they have to tell us what the breakout is.
And then, essentially, are we getting part of this $56 million that we're going to get for CMAQ funds? Is it the state's apportionment that they were already getting,
yeah.
and then we're just it's being given to us?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So every year they do the 6-year plan, and they break out the CMAQ into a bunch of different projects. We were one of many projects that this was split out.
The CMAQ is only for federal. It's only the federal revenue coming in. It's a federal.
It's federal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then,
it itself doesn't have somewhat of a CMAQ fund of its own that it gives out to authority. It doesn't, right?
that's right.
It's just it's a state match.
Right. Oh, there is a state match.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's a state match.
The agreement that I sent out this afternoon notifying you of is the additional 15. So it's 70 total, 56 is federal, and 14 is our match, this Virginia match that's coming from VDOT.
Oh, okay.
And so to Bonnie's point,
Mhm.
when we draw down on it, the 56 will go into federal and the 14 will go to state.
I get it. Thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I would request a motion to approve authorization for the executive director to execute the CMAQ grant agreement with FRA. Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Sync.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And then reminder this afternoon, I will give you a notification of 5 days from now. We're going to sign up for the other 14 million with VDOT. Okay. Here's an update of the siding projects. Pretty straightforward. Things continue to move forward pretty well. We're going to talk in a second. We hear the other capital projects. Again, no really red flags. Things continue to progress forward. It's no news is good news, and we're surrounded by good news, knock on wood. We'll talk about grants in a minute. Here are the capital project expenditures, FY25 budget to actual, pretty much where we expected to be. As we've seen many projects moving into construction, this money is going to flow more rapidly, and Bonnie and Selma and the team are ready from a cash flow point of view, so we're in good shape there. They both just give me a nod of confidence. Bonnie's a little less confident. No, they show, okay, good. So we're in good shape there. Here is the breakdown of Western Rail. We have a video to show shortly. This is one we actually will show of the work that's taking place in Western Rail, specifically at Cambria and Bradford. The dirt that's moving there is amazing. Norfolk Southern is making great progress there, and I think you'll be excited to see that. Communications team is going to be out there with a small group of folks, the mayor of Christiansburg and a CTB member, just to look at that progress. But that, as I think folks, Ms. Reinhardt and others will know, that whole community is incredibly excited about what's happening there. So quickly. All right, property transfers. This is what I wanted to talk about in a little bit more detail. So you have all heard over the course of the last few years some of the challenges we've had in reconciling what we thought we were purchasing and what was actually being purchased. I'm thrilled to announce that in the 5 big jurisdictions, we have made it through the entire progress. We have gotten all the survey work complete. We've high-fived with CSX and said, yes, we agree where the boundary lines are. We've dealt with the local communities. We've dealt with the court folks and said, yes, this is where the boundaries are. And we just 2 weeks ago received and recorded the deeds of confirmation. So this land is officially ours. All the project work, the design was held up because we didn't know if our line was here, if our line was here. All of that has been resolved, and we can rest easy that for these 5 big jurisdictions, all of that work is behind us. So that's a huge piece of good news. Joe Yagman on Michael Westman's team was just pivotal. We've got our real estate team has been working hard to just get this in place and do the right thing. As we've talked about, we had the opportunity. We could have moved forward with the design, not confirming these till later, but we didn't want to do that. That just put us at too much risk. Exactly. We don't want to do that. So this is all done, and we have confidence that we know what right of way is ours and what is CSX. So that's just a huge piece of good news. Specifically, project by project, we have slivers of land that we need to acquire right away. We need to acquire. Here's the status. We continue to make good progress there, and none of this activity is impacting any of our project schedules at this point. So continued good news there as well. Capital and operating grants update. This is, we have the Staunton ADA and State of Good Repair and Improvement Grant that we put into the federal state partnership program. Unfortunately, FRA has decided that they are not going to issue NT 2024 grants, and they have encouraged us to reapply. So we will put that application back in for what will be a combined 24 and 25 process. There's a lot of work that needs to go. We met with them a couple months ago, and we plan on going out there again. Getting that improved would be good, but we can't until we get any federal funding. We're not going to. We just can't put that forward. And then the Richmond Layer facility, the Central Virginia Transportation Authority put in, Henrico put in on our behalf a request for $15 million, and we'll find out about that sometime. Once. We had it's not an earmark. We had congressionally directed spending that was in the appropriations bills of $2 million for the 4th track project, and that with the entire budget being in limbo is also in limbo. But that we'll find out when we find out. Any questions about our grant funding? All right, here's the final FY25 budget to actual. Again, that's where we expected, and construction is moving forward, so this money will continue to flow, and Bonnie and Selma are still incredibly confident. Yep, good cash flow is good. And then here's the Western Rail stuff, notes for the Calvertine, the double track. Norfolk Southern is going to put that out to bid. We expected that to be done by last week. They have a little bit of a permit issue with VDOT that they don't want to put it out to bid until that permit is done. It may be a little bit of a delay, but nothing that they can't make up. And then the work in the Roanoke yard is ongoing. That we don't have a video of that, but there's a lot of work on there too. Revenue and investment. Everything continues to be good news. Our Commonwealth Rail Fund, we are right on schedule starting FY26. You see July, we were a little higher than expected. August, we were a little lower than expected, exactly the way it's worked for the last 4 years. No reason to believe that we're not going to hit our FY26 revenue of the $170 some odd million. 172, there you go. So good shape there. Investment, we've got about $500 million that we're investing over the first couple of months of the year. So far, 2 months, we've got about $3.5 million of income, a little higher than what we expected. So that's good news, but we continue to move forward. Low risk, protect our capital, following the investment policy. Everything's in good shape there. Here's the breakout of what we have through August. And again, 2.2% is right what we expected. Bonnie's been really pushing to get into Bitcoin, but I've told her we're not going to do that. So, and then here's the pie graph we show every month. Just continue to sit on a good cash balance, and this is a critical thing for us because with Long Bridge, with Bypass, when we put the contracts out for bid, the potential vendors knew that we had the cash in hand and that there wasn't a risk of the project going defunct halfway through. So this is a big part of why we've been able to get good competitive bids. And here's the 12-month return through August. Again, pretty much as expected. It's boring. I wish I had something exciting to show, but it's just all continued goodness. Any questions on finance? Yep.
Roanoke Yard, are we doing, is that our project?
Norfolk Southern is doing it. So as part of the original Western Rail Initiative, we had $36 million that was set aside for the Roanoke Yard. Southern said that they needed to get that work done in order to, right now the trains stop in Roanoke. If you go further west, the first thing you get to is Roanoke Yard. So in order to get to Christiansburg and beyond, they said they needed a clearer path through Roanoke Yard because they didn't want the passenger train to get in the way of their freight trains. They said that it would be a $36.5 million project that they would do, and our agreement gave them $36.5 million. Since then, they have made some scope improvements, and the price has gone from 36 to somewhere in the 50s. But as part of the original agreement, it was $36.5 million for the yard, and then $13 million a year in what's called the Western Rail Initiative Fund that Norfolk Southern could draw into for any improvements on that infrastructure that would improve the fluidity of passenger service there. And they have to show us that, and Mike, if I say something wrong, jump in. They have to show us that the money they spend in that kind of bank goes to improve passenger service.
And who funds the Western Rail Initiative Fund?
That was part of what we do. That was
okay. Oh, we do.
That we set that money aside for that.
Just to us?
VPRA. That
okay.
Comes from the Commonwealth Rail Fund.
Okay.
They have come to us and said 36.5. We want to do more. We, Norfolk Southern, want to pull from that Western Rail Initiative Fund that $13 million a year. And we said we see that it does improve the passenger flow, so we allowed them to use the money for that.
If I can, we've learned from experience in the past that if we're giving money to a railroad to build through a yard, we want to make sure that the train operates at a certain speed. And in our agreements, it has the speed charts in there, so they have to maintain that. They maintain that speed from there. They can't side us with the freight train.
Yeah, okay.
That has happened in other yards in Virginia and from deals from
it maintains the speed of Amtrak.
The Amtrak train.
Right.
Through,
yeah, exactly.
Miles per hour per yard.
Okay. Because okay. Yeah, because I can see what the freight would do. Yeah, they improve the yard all right. That's where we sit, right?
We learned to actually put these kind of charts in the agreement
gotcha.
to make sure they get through in a timely fashion. Plus, they have an incentive plan that if they reach a certain percent of on-time performance, they receive all that also. More the on-time performance goes down,
Mhm.
the less money they receive. And
Oh.
knowing that encourages them to continue to get through Roanoke Yard as fast as possible.
Good, Mike. That's smart. Thank you.
For clarity,
Very good.
Mike earlier said that we've learned from experience. The experience that you mentioned is exactly what we were talking about when we went to Norfolk Southern, that we can't let this happen again.
Yeah. Good for you guys. Good. I like that.
Yeah, that speaking of it, and going back to this is something Virginia does, it's not done elsewhere. As Mike pointed out, in our agreement with Norfolk Southern, we pay them an access fee. But if the on-time performance is less than 80%, we don't pay them the full access fee. We pay them a portion of the access fee. And if it goes down below, I think the number is 30, we pay them nothing. So it's staggered such that they're incentivized to move our trains on time.
That's great. And they get it. They know that.
Oh, yeah.
They are well aware of it. Good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So administrative updates this week, quick, pretty much steady FTE. We've got jobs open, no new hiring activity in September. We've got 2 folks that come on board in October. And then here's the final administrative budget as of the end of FY25, pretty much on track. We're starting now. We'll be tracking the 26 budget to actual starting next month. And then we'll be working over the course of between now and January to present the 27 budget to you all. I believe it's fantastic. That is the executive director's report. And I'm 3 minutes early. Wow.
Thank you, DJ.
Any questions for me?
Then we'll move right along to our construction updates report. Turn it over to Mike.
I'm going to ask Shirley and Jeff. So DJ said we're moving to a slightly different model where the major projects, since they're getting to construction, we thought we'd have a separate section. And I'll kick it off and hand over to Shirley and then Jeff, just to kind of set the table. We're talking about the major projects under construction. Which really works and other packages. We have something called Notice to Proceed NTP. We often give them packages. Really much package that construction work that is ongoing. It's a way to speed up the process, the construction process. So I'm not going to read all these. We're going to go through the projects anyway. And with that, I'm just going to hand it over to Shirley.
All right. Morning, everyone.
Just to be clear, Shirley and Jeff, both VPRA employees. Shirley's obviously leading our both packages of Long Bridge. Jeff's leading everything else.
So talking about Long Bridge North, the first Long Bridge package that was good notice to proceed. I think we had a question about that. Just to be clear, this one was issued notice to proceed in January of 2024. That was to take the design from 30 to 60%. Then we also had a notice to proceed for the early works packages, the early works packages. That was in January of 2025. So you're going to see pictures of the work that has been produced because of that early works NTP. And then finally, we did have the negotiation period to negotiate the price for this package. Remember, this was progressive design build. That took a good 9 to 12 months straight to get through, Michael. But then the notice to proceed for phase 2 was on July 3rd. So there's like a progression of notice to proceeds, but we have been working in the field negotiating that contract. So recently completed, we did take the disused track that was under the Maryland Avenue overbuild out of service. We removed it so that we could make way for the construction of the reinforcement of the crash walls under the overbuild. We did do the demonstration drill shafts and micropiles in East Potomac Park, right there along the Washington Channel. And then we also did a traffic shift enclosure. There will be a series of these over the years, but we did get the first one underway back at the end of August.
I was out there yesterday. If anyone's driven by the area, construction's happening. Yeah, there's quite so you can. Yeah, it's got some big machinery out there digging up the old road. It's a lot of utility work.
Yeah,
going on.
And we have pictures of now. There's a lot more money. So ongoing, again, we're doing crash wall strengthening over the Maryland Avenue overbuild. We have been removing trees as we're getting approval to do that in various areas where we get property rights. And then the CSX duct bank relocation, that's another major element of work that we had to get the trees out of the way first. And we will be doing that directional bore very soon, probably in a couple of weeks, right there at East Potomac Park. Additionally, upcoming is installation of additional construction laydown area in East Potomac Park. If you've been out there, there's those ball fields right there, kind of in between Washington Channel and 395. That's going to become one of our major offices out there, and the modular buildings for that are supposed to arrive in middle to end of November. Also, utility relocation work in Maiden Lane and Main Avenue. That's what we did the traffic shift for. That actually is occurring now. Washington Gas is out there doing their relocation. So that's pretty exciting that they're out there. As you know, that can sometimes be a source of delay. And so we're very excited that they're out there. So just some pictures from recent work. Here's where the disused track was already taking way for the crash wall work. And then pictures from over the summer when we were doing the steel shafts and micropiles in East Potomac Park. All that work is done out there. You just see an open field. Then here this discusses the traffic shift that we did. Basically, we're making a way for all of this work that's going on right here, right now. Most of that being taken up by Washington Gas. And anyway, you can just see some of the pictures from when we instituted that shift. It's been very successful. Basically, no changes to the experience of the driver going through this work zone. That will come later. But for now, it's very smooth sailing out there, traffic wise. And then just some pictures under the Maryland Avenue overbuild of the crash wall reinforcing work. We are basically done with the first element here, crash wall D and then crash wall F, which reinforces the 12th Street overpass DDOT's bridge. And then we're moving on to crash wall C, which is closer to the portals development on the west side of the project. That work will be a little more substantial. We'll be having to make the walls much thicker and then deeper.
It's to protect the bridge.
Yes, because we're going to be widening and making the tracks closer, so these have to become more substantial.
Cantually, it's a very busy area. Not only are we right next door, I think it's Republic Developers doing is doing work. They're
Tearing down that building?
Yeah.
Well, there's that. But then they're also building another building right behind portals. So there's two other construction projects going on at the same time.
Yeah, it looks really dangerous.
Yeah.
Why are they tearing down that building? I thought
they're not tearing it down. They're taking off the facing and they're adding a couple more floors and then redoing the outside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's, when you go out there, when you can hear the pounding, that's the really good deal.
Have we figured out we're going to be really close to, is it Salamander now? What's the name of that? Is it Salamander?
Yes.
We're going to be really close to that, right?
Right next to it.
Right, exactly.
When you go into the tunnel underneath Maryland Avenue, if you're going north, Salamander's on the right.
Yeah, we haven't started doing any.
Well, actually, this work right here is next to the Salamander.
Oh, it is.
Enter this tunnel going railroad north. The Salamander's immediately to the right.
But that tear down that building isn't us.
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
So it's nice in some ways because there's other disruptive stuff going on. Hopefully we can just get all these projects done at one time.
That's really dangerous.
So yes, and we will be doing a crash wall on the other side again next to Salamander too, but that's a couple of years down the line. And then this is the area where by the ball fields we'll be putting the trailers. And then we're just taking down the trees on the slope, and that's where the CSX is.
Those of us who play professional softball, but some people. We're only taking one of the two fields there. We're very sensitive to the professional softball league.
All right, and then any questions on North Package? Okay, let's move to South, which is also underway and doing lots of work at the field, or at least they work. They were going through their scope validation period. That's basically a 6-month period from when they received notice to proceed. That year. They did have some delays getting onto Amada property and onto CSX NPS property, and so we haven't given them an extension for those areas until February 2026 to complete their scope validation, which is fine. You want them to feel like they've done their due diligence and making sure that they've discovered anything out there that might have an effect on their price.
They've assured us, though, that, and if I'm wrong, correct me, they've assured us that even with that extension, it doesn't impact the delivery date.
So they've done all of this work, utility searches, surveying, monitoring structures, and then the geotechnical borings will show you some pictures of that. That was a very impressive operation they had out in the river this summer. They are completed with that work now. So it came with the scope validation period. Amada Bridge survey and existing Long Bridge survey, we need to do that as well. And then obviously getting all these permits has been a huge undertaking. From FAA, from NBS, from all the environmental permitting agencies, it's a huge undertaking to get all the permits necessary to move on to the next phase, which will be the test pile program, both on land and in the river. We are basically ready to go, but that's just waiting on those permits. So that will be the next thing that you see out there. And in addition to the construction of the marine bulkhead, which they will need one on either side of the river, and that will help with the test pile work in the river. So just some pictures of that soil burn work that we done over the summer. I think they showed you a video of their work on screen. That's very interesting. It gives kind of a flavor of what it's going to be like once they're actually out there driving a year. So with that, I think that's it, unless there's any more questions.
Sure, then just a quick question on the South package, right? Is the permit timeline on schedule, or has it started to shift to the right a little bit?
I have to say the government shutdown hasn't helped, right?
Yeah.
The permits that we were expecting for them, yes, that we don't have. So it just depends on how long the shutdown lasts. Because their position has been they're not going to issue any more permits while they're shut down.
Okay.
So that is the next thing, right? Is getting out there and doing those test piles, and we can't do that until
To that end on permits, are the Long Bridge projects subject to like kind of the one federal decision policy, right? Is that, or do we have to go to each of these agencies individually, right? I know there's been a lot of attempts to kind of consolidate the permitting process, right? To saying, okay, just one agency is either the lead federal agency, and then they're supposed to find their federal partners to then say, okay, you have equities here, but then we get one notice to proceed, right?
I wouldn't say it's quite that streamlined. It is far more streamlined than it used to be.
Okay.
You do still have to go to, to the Army Corps of Engineers to get their permit, and the DOE and DC to get their permit, and FAA to get their permit. You know what I mean? Like, so there is a bit of shopping around to go get your permits, just because they each have their own area of expertise. But they do work together. We have joint meetings with them, and so everybody hears what the other's doing. I think it is far more streamlined than it used to be, say 20 years ago.
I just want to thank you for seeing activity. If you remember in May, I was critical of that Long Bridge North. So thank you. I do have a question on Long Bridge North. So you mentioned 2 NTPs.
There's actually many more than that. But there's 2 main ones. Yes, there was one for phase 1 for design, and then one.
Okay, and that was issued in January 24. And then the next one was in.
And then we did another one in January 2025 for these early works packages. The work that you saw on the screen, that's because of that NTP.
Okay.
And then we finally issued the last one in July 3rd of 2025 for the phase 2.
Is that usual? Usually, I thought you usually just get one NTP and then you start, because I noticed nobody sent out a press release for the 124. No one sent a press release out for the.
We did 124, right? That was when we issued the first one. Maybe not for the early works. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Shortly after the award, right after we had the award in December of 23. Then there was a press conference. And shortly thereafter that, we were already negotiating that.
Okay. We sent one out, but did the vendor? I don't think the vendor did, because you saw a lot of activity in 2025. They did.
Later though. I think it was later.
Okay.
People that Kirkman folks, I remember they reached out to us and make sure everything.
Okay. Well, I saw a lot of activity in 2025, which was great. We did, they did. That was great. And now to see it, so thank you. I know that it may sound shallow, but it's just real important, I think, that the people see activity. Yeah.
And to your question, is this normal? It's really a function of it being a aggressive design building.
Yeah, and I don't.
Chunks like this.
I still don't understand that, but I'm looking forward to watching it and following it. It's definitely different.
Yes. Spring Springfield bypass, I'll probably speed up a bit more here, but we're a little bit behind, not as far along as Long Bridge is on early works package and whatnot, but as many of you know, we have briefed the board over the last few meetings. We had a CMGC delivery for this, so our contractor worked with us for the first year to advise us how to build the project, how to design it. And then this past June, we executed an agreement, what's called the phase 2 amendment, which basically turns on the GC function. So now they are truly our general contractor. Provided NTP for the shoe fly package in June, which I'll get to in just a minute. And they've been gradually ramping up in the field. They've been mobilizing. They've been getting access to the site. Unlike Long Bridge, which is wide out in the open, Bypass is about as remote as you can get in Northern Virginia, and it's tough to get to and tough to see. If you do want to see it, I recommend you get on a train and look, whether it's on the VPRA Fredericksburg line or on one of the Amtrak state supported services. But we have been mobilizing. We've done kickoff with Virginia DEQ for our construction general permit. I know that may sound a bit boring, but that actually represents a really important step for us. That means you can get out there and start disturbing the ground and actually doing work. We've been doing brush clearing and site surveys to get ready for the shoe fly work. And we've been mobilizing equipment in here, doing utility surveys. One thing that's happened since this kind of went to press that hadn't get into the slide is that CSX has been building some railroad crossings for us. We have 3 crossings throughout the bypass footprint that need to get put in place. They take a lot of work and pre-work to get into place because they have to be registered with USDOT. They have to be very fully surveyed because of positive train control, so that CSX and their dispatchers know where those those crossings are. And those have been under construction since late last week, and they should be completed, I would say, sometime this week. With some of the ground that we have to build up near them.
Yeah, just the work CSX contractor.
Yes. So that really opens up a lot of space for us in the area to actually go back and forth across tracks because it is tough to access certain parts of the site. We're going to continue in the coming weeks with erosion and sediment controls. We do have noise and vibration monitoring requirements. We do have sensors that we're going to be putting out in the field that have remote reporting capabilities to us. The upcoming is the crossing for construction vehicles. So that has moved into the ongoing category, thankfully.
We have to put these materials a week ahead, a week in advance. So a lot.
Real time updates.
I think DJ said earlier, a lot happens in that week. We have to send it to Mary Stella. We better get to Mary Stella on time, and then we actually present.
We've mentioned the shoe fly tracks a few times, and just so you're aware of it, the bypass is a 1 mile long bridge that flies over the existing tracks. We are in what we call the fouling zone almost all the time when we build the bridge. So that really limits our ability to do the work. So one of the things that our contractor came to us with during the CM phase was the idea of shoe fly tracks, which is to push the tracks as far away from the work as possible so we're not fouling as often. So the shoe fly tracks are what we're going to be building over the next year in order to keep away from active tracks as much as possible so that we don't have to shut down work and we can be productive. And you get an idea of that in some of those cross sections you see there. The fouling includes not just people, but equipment. So if you have the boom of a truck or a crane that would foul the tracks, that's also considered fouling, as you see with existing tracks. So shoe fly gets us out of that zone and lets us do some of the bridge work and the wall work that we need to do.
Good question. Did we have an issue with this design, engineering issue early on regarding the overpass? No? No? Okay. Thank you.
We had an issue with the graphic where we had a graphic where it showed. It wasn't.
It was the graphic. Yeah, okay, that's right. It was the graphic. Thank you.
Doesn't make not the most glamorous photos, but the fact that we are in the field doing environmental and ground survey work really is important. A huge step for the project. Some of the survey work, brush clearing. Third track. So Frank Miller and third track falls with the bypass does fall within the 6 mile Frank Miller and third track project. We have kicked off some early works with CSX here. What you see here is early works to replace the Ravensworth interlocking, which is right where the bypass is going to be. So CSX has been under construction for a few weeks now. They have, you see the materials for the switches and the turnouts that are there that are going to get put into place over the next few months. They're going to cut that signal over at the beginning of next year once their peak season comes.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. So I'm going to leave it fast because DJ allows to show a video. Just to get everyone's bearings, newer Valley Passenger project. There's really 2 project sites. We have the we call it Cambria site, synonymous Christiansburg. That's where the old Norfolk Southern Depot was. That's for we call it Railroad North, even though it's kind of eastish. And then we have the layover site, which is in Radford, like almost exactly 10 miles south of there. And again, I'm not going to read all these words because the video is going to show a lot of this, but there has been a lot of grading going on out there. And you'll see this. I'll just go right to the pictures. You can see from the pictures, one of the first things we did, construction began actually a long time ago, about this time last year, when we had to move the NS folks there to a new building. So on Railroad North part of the site, we paid for Norfolk Southern to build a new maintenance away building. And you see that again, that's heading for Charlottesville, Washington, D.C., so on and so forth. And you also see some sheet pile wall work happening. Jacking boards, this is a good picture. We talked about jacking boards, we know it actually fit. That's a great picture. I'm glad we added that as well. And again, this is the Cambria site. There is on the other side of the tracks a small creek. Always worried about water, but not as much water as some other sites we had looked at a couple of years ago. And you keep moving on. This is the old station that hasn't been used since 1979 for passenger services. It's been used. That was used by the NS maintenance away folks as their day-to-day facility. That will be handed over to the New River Valley Station Authority, and they're going to reconstruct that, if you will, to allow for a passenger station. But to get your bearings, the track is right here. It's close. So the platform is going to have to go right there. So hence why you see some of the work happening there. And this is where I go to the video and help.
Did you advance? It's not.
There we go. It's definitely. Heading south. A couple more pictures. This is the Radford site. Again, this is where the labor facility is going to be. It's a large yard there for Norfolk Southern, and they're giving us a part of the yard. You can see those are stands for Radford Athletic Facilities. So we are right up there with the university there in Radford. And again, more of the light pole foundations, other things have been constructed. Also, new signals have already been done. This is the entrance to the yard. That's why you only see two tracks versus the many more tracks. So that was a great video. We do have a drone out there. Hence, we'll be able to continue showing these type of videos. I should state that my lawyer and others might get me in trouble. We are working on camera installation at Longbridge near Salamander Hotel. And so we might be able to show in the future some, not live, you don't want to show live, but some lapse footage, some video footage work going on out of Longbridge.
Get convinced. Well, that's really helpful.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, visual really.
Isn't it?
It totally really is. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
And all that work, the drone really shows you how much work is going on out there. And our partnership with Norfolk Southern and the pivot from the other location to this one that DJ engineered has been really key for us.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think that's it.
Curious, whose voice was on the video?
Yeah, it's a computer.
Nice.
Perfect.
Wow.
Jericho wants to put a computer in this seat for the next board meeting. I said no.
Okay.
That's it. Project updates. to item number 10.
Chair, board members, like mentioned, my name is Jeff Phillips here, Service VPRA Student Director for Northern Virginia Projects. I wanted to update the board on 3 projects in the Alexandria corridor that have reached key procurement milestones that are ready to move into construction. I'll provide some updates on the status of those procurements, as well as a preview to the board budget resolutions that you'll see after lunch. I'm going to start with Alexandria Fourth Track. I know many of you know about Alexandria Fourth Track. It was one of the first projects that kicked off the TRD program. It picks up where Longbridge leaves off at the RO interlocking in Arlington, and it's going to construct 6 miles of new 4th mainline track all the way to the AF interlocking in Alexandria. AF is a really important point on the Virginia Railroad map. It's where the tracks from Richmond and points south meet up with the tracks from the Manassas line and points west. We have 5 tracks that merge into 3, and that provides a significant bottleneck that we need to relieve. It really is the nexus of passenger rail traffic in the Commonwealth, whether it's our Amtrak state-supported service, long-distance service, and both the VRE's lines that meet at AF as well. Fourth Track is also the first project that has been designed and will be built by CSX in the lead in our portfolio. And it's also important that it enables other projects within the footprint. So it's going to enable the replacement of Crystal City Station in Arlington, and it also enables the Alexandria Station Improvements Project and the King and Commonwealth bridge replacements. I wish it was as straightforward as this, but for a significant portion of the Fourth Track, it actually is fairly straightforward. We have the space to build it. There are some tricky places along the interlockings and along the bridges, but we have the space to build Fourth Track. What is challenging about Fourth Track is how you access it, given that it's mostly in the urban environment, and also that we need to sequence it with all the other demands in the corridor, whether it's the other projects we're talking about or maintaining the consistent passenger and freight traffic along the Alexandria corridor. So I guess the bottom line up front for the Alexandria Fourth Track project is that it's ready for construction. We've completed design. As DJ showed earlier, right-of-way acquisition is nearly complete. CSX put out their invitation for bid back in June. In August, they received 4 very competitive bids. Based on their preferred bidder, we've compiled a proposed budget of $238.4 million. That is higher than our current budget, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the budget that we currently have of $210.5 was developed about 5 years ago based on preliminary engineering. It was before we really understood the full corridor and the extent of the existing conditions. As DJ mentioned in his update, we've since done a survey of the corridor and the boundaries. We realized we needed to acquire more right-of-way than we originally thought, and more expensive right-of-way. So right-of-way budget has increased. We also didn't really, at that time, have a full picture of the railroad constraints that we would have and the dependencies. The projects on Longbridge. I'm going to show you in a few minutes some of the work that we've done in that respect. I do want to go through a little bit of some of the phasing that we've come up with for the Fourth Track project. Just to give you an idea of the work that's had to go into actually making this project happen. What you see here, and I'll see a couple versions of this, is the track line diagram. So the green lines are tracks in service, red are tracks under construction, yellow are tracks that are out of service. What we did here, and I should also say too, to the left in Railroad South is the AF interlocking, that's 5 tracks. To the right in Railroad North, Longbridge, and the RO. What we did some time ago is we got a group together, a small group, CSX, VPRA, and VRE. And we had 3 overarching principles for how we needed to make the AF to RO or the Alexandria Fourth Track project work. And that was that we needed to keep 2 tracks in service at all times to maintain service. We needed to keep 2 boarding platforms in service at all times at Alexandria Station. And we needed to keep a platform in service at Crystal City. And for basically the next 18 months, we just hammered out the plan for how we were going to do it at every component, whether it was the King and Commonwealth project, Alexandria Station, or just the phasing for Fourth Track alone. We worked through it in great detail. We have this set of diagrams. We have a schedule that goes with it. We also have a plan for how CSX is going to manage all the phasing of its signals so that we have efficient and safe transit through the Alexandria corridor during construction. And Mr. Richards is part of that group and can attest to the amount of work and the amount of effort that went into making that happen. And I think it really is a great example of the partnership between VPRA, CSX, and VRE to make this happen. In terms of the Alexandria Fourth Track contracting sequence moving forward, you see the red line, that's where we are today. CSX has really completed its procurement at this point. They've given us their all-in price for construction. We're going to be coming to the board in about an hour or so with our amended budget. If the board passes that budget, we will update the project addendum, which is our agreement with CSX to complete the project. And with that addendum, CSX will execute a contract with their preferred contractor with an aim of having a TP by the beginning of next month. I should also note in the top right corner there, you see we are contemplating and working on a joint groundbreaking for the projects in mid-November. That hasn't been firmed up yet, but I'm sure once we do, the CompST and Jericho team will be in touch with the board on the final date for
And
that.
CSX is doing this work?
They are.
And who's the contractor?
I don't believe we can.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay, moving on to Alexandria on all bridges. Again, as the board is aware, last December, VPRA and VRE decided to partner and unify the design of these projects in order to deliver them and construct them together with VRE as the lead entity. This very busy graphic shows you why. The projects are so close together, they're so tightly intertwined, that it's virtually impossible to do work on one without affecting the other. And the idea of having two separate entities, VPRA and VRE, trying to do this work with two separate contractors at the same time in the same footprint was a recipe for disaster. So we decided to work together, to put the design together, and to procure it and execute it together. Again, to orient you to this photo or this image here, to the right in Railroad North, you see the bridges for Commonwealth Avenue and King Street. In the middle, you see the existing Alexandria Station. Next to it is the west platform that will be extended and rehabilitated. And then just across from that, of course, will be the east platform, which will also be extended and rehab.
And yeah, this is the bridge that we saw on our tour, DJ, about a year ago.
Okay. Both of them.
Yeah, so these are the two bridges. They are sitting now at about 120 years old. They're certainly in need of upgrading to modern design and safety standards. They have very tight clearances, both vertical and horizontal, specifically at King Street, where you have about a 13-foot clearance. We've had a number of bridge strikes over the years, which essentially stops, service throughout the corridor and really the East Coast until the bridge can either be repaired or inspected and put back into service. So the new King Street Bridge will have a higher vertical clearance. It will also, for both bridges, they have longer spans, which provide a lot more space underneath the bridge for the roadway, for sidewalks, for station entrances. The City of Alexandria is currently working on the design for that streetscape, and they plan to start construction on that once the road improvements are complete. Station project has a lot of great benefits for passengers, both on access and safety. For one, we'll be putting in, replacing the existing tunnel that goes under the tracks, putting in new elevators, and that's going to eliminate the need for that at-grade crossing that you see in the bottom photo right there. Those of you who've used Alexandria Station know it's an operational and safety challenge to have passengers having to cross the tracks to get to platform 2. So, that is one of the main goals of the project and one of the reasons why it's been funded. Another great outcome of this project is that we're going to be bringing the platforms up to modern standard. We're going to be bringing them to 8 feet above top of rail, which removes the need for those ubiquitous yellow stools that VRE and Amtrak need to do.
That's why I stood up. I'm a daily, now that I live in Fredericksburg, I'm a daily rider. When I'm not down here to Alexandria. And there are some people that struggle. I mean, sometimes I'll struggle getting off the train, and it's different where you are on the platform. So it can really slow down service as well, because you have to bring either not just a yellow footstool, but sometimes they'll bring over steps. Dallas, anything you want to comment on with regard to the work you guys are doing there?
Just exciting. Like, we're really close. And I echo the sentiment about the collaboration. The Fourth Track project was chosen as one of a handful of projects presented at the ARIMA conference this year. and touted for its coordination and delivery. And so we're very, very, very excited. So thank you.
Is it accepted at the conference?
What's that?
What kind of feedback did you get at the?
Oh, it was all positive. It was positive. It was very well attended and very positive.
It was.
And usually they don't exhibit projects that are not constructed yet, right? This was just delivering the coordination and all that it took between the three agencies. It was very, very well received.
Also mentioned too, the reconstruction, the east platform is going to have boarding edges on both sides. So we'll end up having 3 boarding edges at the station, which again provides a lot of flexibility for dispatchers, for operations at the station, with all of the Amtrak and VRA service that comes into Alexandria.
Can I just ask one? Can you explain to me, are you just going to replace in kind the tunnel underneath?
I'll take that one. The existing tunnel is aged like the bridge is about 120 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I hate it.
So we are putting a precast concrete tunnel. It'll be wider, taller, brighter, cleaner, much better than what we have today.
Okay, but same place, you still go upside down. And so
same exact location, literally by virtue of this project, these 2 projects being done together, it gives us time to do basically just that, to take out that whole entire tunnel in one piece and then put a new tunnel back where it is and put the elevators on each end of that.
Great. Thank you.
Excited.
As I mentioned before, VPRA and VRE entered into a joint funding agreement last December for the Unified project. VPRA funds the bridges, VRE funds the station, and then we share the cost prorated based on the weights of those 2 projects. For things like construction management, mobilization, environmental controls, those sorts of things. VRE had its procurement. They did IFB back in June. They opened bids in early September. 3 of the bids came in, I think it was less than 10% of each other. One of the bids was not responsive and was removed. So based on the apparent low bidder, the VRE has provided us the cost of the bridge. We've agreed on our portion of the shared cost, which comes to a proposed budget of $97.7 million. Again, that's higher than our existing FY26 budget for a couple of reasons. One is that our original budget was developed before we had that sequencing plan that I showed earlier. The design was based on a construction method that just wasn't feasible. We tried, we just could not make it work. So the design that we went back to and sequenced is now reflected in the bid documents. I should also say that all of those diagrams that I showed earlier have been incorporated in both CSX's contract and VRE's contract as a special provision, so that any contractor wants to make a change to that schedule or change to that plan, all of the projects have to review it and approve it. Otherwise, we'll have cascading effects of each other. So that bid that we've received and that VRE has received is indicative of the plan and sequencing that we're moving forward with. I should also note the cost of steel. We have seen some increases, significant increases in the cost of steel this year. And that is reflected in the bid. And given that King and Commonwealth are steel bridges that are going to be replaced, that is a key component of our.
So you said it's higher. What percentage would you say roughly?
What we're hearing from industry is about 20%.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, some of that is nationwide, so it could be different. So the contracting sequence finally for the Unified project, again, we're in the middle here. We're following VRE's procurement method. So they've given us the all-in cost. We're going to propose an amendment to the budget to the board today. If the board approves that, VRE will be able to take the Unified bid to their operations board for approval to execute a construction contract. There are 2 operations board meetings in the next 2 months. There's one next week, one later next month. Depending on that board's approval, VRE will be able to enter into a construction contract with their preferred bidder or their apparent low bidder with a goal towards NTP in early December. Any other questions? Otherwise, appreciate the board's time.
I could offer a little color commentary, right? I first worked on, just for context, right? In about 1999, first worked on replacement of those 2 bridges. And it's been that long. They've been known to the city that they needed to be replaced for geometric reasons, all sorts of things. And if these 3 projects, and they're really 3 projects, like the 4th track, the station, and the bridges, it's a once in a career, once in a lifetime opportunity to do them all at once. Because if you don't do them together, they just sort of this trickle down mess that makes it even more difficult to do any one of them. So I would encourage you, this again is a great opportunity for all of us to get this very important project.
Who owns Alexandria Station?
Technically the city.
Okay.
The city of Alexandria owns the station. It is leased by Amtrak.
Are they paying for part of the costs?
There's no Amtrak money.
It's not Amtrak, but in Alexandria.
To my knowledge.
They're doing the roads underneath?
They are doing, yeah, that is not part of our project, but they are working to basically catch up to our timeline so it can be done right on the heels of our.
I should say, of course, Alexandria is a member of the commissions that make up VPRA.
Yeah, right.
And they're contributing 200 million to the RFP. They're contributing 155 million to the Manassas Line and Seminary Yard, which is going to segue into some of our next items. And that Seminary Yard work, which is just near AF, the point Jeff mentioned, is very important work they're doing.
That's a good point.
Yeah, AF is the nexus of the system in the state of.
Thank you very much. I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, but Dallas, it's really timely that you're here. It is Dallas Richards' first VPRA board meeting as acting CEO of VRE since Rich Dalton's retirement. So welcome, a belated welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here and thank you for your comments. That was helpful in this presentation.
Thank you.
So we'll move to agenda item number 11. We're going to talk about construction windows and service plan. And we have DJ, our executive director.
Thank you very much.
And Jared. Wonderful.
We've talked about this a couple times. In April, we first introduced this topic to you, and then we talked about it again in May, and then we talked about it again in June, and then in August. This is just the next phase of those conversations. We're going to talk about some proposed construction windows and some changes to schedules. I want to be very clear, these are proposed. We don't have approval yet from CSX. We don't have approval yet from Amtrak. We do have approval from VPRA, but as changes are made, we continue to talk. The goals that Jeff's phrase, bottom line up front, we need to get Long Bridge done on time. And in order to get Long Bridge done, just like any major highway project, you've got to close a lane, you've got to make some adjustments, some short-term pain for long-term gain. We have worked very hard over the course of the last really 9 months. We started this process with Amtrak back in January to figure out how we can give the construction team time to build the bridge and impact as few railroad passengers as possible. You've all heard me say this for 3 meetings. If we get the bridge done and we go from when we started was 5 trains up to 13, but everyone is so soured on passenger rail, they don't ride the train, we failed. So keeping the momentum, we've seen great ridership increases, we've seen great passion for folks riding rail. We've got to keep that passion going while getting this bridge done. So the big issue that we're going to talk about is the Long Bridge project. This going from the left to the right starts in Virginia, goes across the Potomac River. That's the south package. Then we've got the north package that starts at the shore and goes all the way around and up to LaFont Plaza. It's about a $1.8 million project. Again, 2 different projects. However, I'm going to point out that the Washington, D.C. line is right there. So at the edge of the river that touches Virginia, that's where the D.C. line is. Part of why we're having these conversations is if you're doing any construction in DC, you can only do construction between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. because they've got noise issues, they've got vibration issues, and that's a regulation that rarely, if ever, gets waived. They will waive it in certain circumstances, but when they do, it's for a 30-day period to do one certain piece of work, and then after that 30 days, your waiver expires and you've got to comply. During that 30 days, a member of public complains. It's a big process. We are not counting on getting any waivers. We've asked for waivers. We're in that process. We want to do as much work outside of peak as possible. But
and who issues the waivers, DJ?
The District of Columbia.
Oh, DC.
So here is the bridge project. This is the existing. I'm going to start. If you look on the right-hand side, this is the existing Long Bridge. Everybody's talked about it, 120 years old. Then you have the WMATA, the Yellow Line Bridge. And then you've got 395, 14th Street Bridge. We are building our new infrastructure right in between these 2 bridges. We're building a new 2-track independent structure for our railroad bridge, and then we're building the pedestrian, the bike ped bridge. Coming up, again, this is all DC. Come up here, you enter into the DC proper of the land. You see the metro tunnel, the metro bridge goes under a tunnel. And then this is where our two structures will become one. And then we're going to be adding 2 tracks and adding to the structure all the way up here. You see how close that is to 395? There's not a lot of room there. See how close it is to the Washington Channel? There's not a lot of room there. See how close it is to the Salamander Hotel? Not a lot of room there. So I think this overhead just shows the incredibly constricted amount of space we have. Shirley left us to that. She'd be really happy to hear me say this because she doesn't think I believe it. Really constrained amount of space we have. This is the artist rendering of what it's going to look like when it's done. This is going north, just got off of the river. Here's the ped bike bridge that kind of lets off right at the end of the shore. Existing long bridge, new long bridge. You see, just as I said earlier, the metro goes in there and then they become one structure. Building here is a little bit easier because you can do structure work here and not foul this track. You can be, for the most part, there are some things you're going to be fouling the track. But when you're building separate structure, it's easier to let trains continue to go through. When you're here, you're right on the same structure as the train. So you cannot do construction work if there are trains going by. It's just way too close. So I think that just gives an indication of the challenges that we have as we build this bridge. So what are we doing? What we're going to talk about today, we talked about it before. We're looking for how we can most efficiently build this bridge, getting it done by 2030 and impact it as few folks as possible. This is the Long Bridge traffic. These are the trains that on any given weekday go through from Alexandria up to LaFont during the hours. And remember, we can work from 7 a.m. 7 p.m. So somewhere in that window, we need to find time for the construction team. When we first started talking about this in January, we had talked about doing 2 separate windows. Let's do a window right in the morning, do about 3 hours, take a break midday and let a bunch of trains go through, and then do a window in the afternoon. The more we looked at it, and it actually was the Amtrak's idea, Amtrak said 2 windows doesn't make sense because in order to have 2 3-hour windows to start the work, you've got to set up all the equipment, then you can start work, and then about 2 hours later, you've got to bring the equipment off the tracks so trains can go through. Additionally, in the afternoon, especially in the summer, your trains are less reliable. You've got heat orders, maybe the train's late. And as soon as the train is late, it bastardizes that window and it gives the construction folks less time to work. So Amtrak proposed, let's just do 1 5-hour window, start it as early as we can in the morning, and then give them 5 hours, get the work done, and then open up the road again so the floodgate can break and we can get trains through. We considered, and again, our focus here is to impact as few passengers as possible. We considered starting right at 7 o'clock when the noise and vibration lifted, but all of these trains here, these are VPRA trains, or most of the trains are VPRA trains. If you don't run those VPRA trains in the morning, then not only do you impact those folks, but you impact all the folks in the afternoon because they're not going to take a train one way and then not the other way. So we made the decision we're going to start the window, and this is the vibration indication. Start the window right after that morning rush, take about 5 hours to 1 o'clock, and then let trains go through and then keep going. So what do we have to do? We have to move a bunch of trains. We have to change schedules, make a couple changes. Here is the current now. Here's the current proposal. So the current proposal is we have got to, the window geographically starts in Alexandria. So you can get to Alexandria and then the work will be anything north of that, you can't get this construction window. So the last 2 Manassas line trains, the latest 2 in the morning, and the last 2 Fredericksburg line trains, they will go to Alexandria, let folks off in Alexandria. Folks can then get on the metro and then take the metro to wherever they're going. And then they will shove back. So they'll go backwards, as Mike pointed out earlier. We own Seminary Yard. We purchased Seminary Yard and VPRA has it. They can shove back and they can sit in Seminary Yard and stay there. So we can continue to have folks get to the city after that 8:15 window starts. They just need to get off in Alexandria and take the metro. And then the other proposal is we'll have 2 trains, or 2, buses from Hampton Roads. Right now, you've got 3 trains to Norfolk and 2 trains to Newport News. So a total of 5 trains. The proposal is starting when this construction starts, you would change that. You go from 5 trains to 4 trains, but you would add 2 buses. So you go from 5 options basically to 4 trains and 2 buses, so 6 options. So you'd have an extra option. The challenges would be a bus, not a train. So that's the current proposal. This is the slide that we showed you back in. Showed it first in April, then May, then June. But in August, this is where we were. CSX had not yet agreed to move that train. Didn't make any sense to let one train go through the middle of the window. So now they have agreed to move that, and then that will move over further outside. Both of those trains, the southbound and the northbound, will move outside of the window. If you look at, and then again, once 1 o'clock comes, construction folks pick the equipment off, and then all of those trains go through and we get prepared for what is the afternoon rush. Similar story on, well, again, CSX has approved, so this is the change since what we showed you. Same thing on the weekend, you see that it's not as busy because we don't yet have VPRA weekend service. What we will have though, and Amtrak has agreed to do step-up program again. So what the step-up program is, if you've got a multi-day ticket on VPRA, you can just get on whatever the next train is. Well, for whatever reason, if the next train is a state-supported train, you can use that VPRA ticket for, I think, $4. You can ride whatever train you want to include work on the weekend. So even though VPRA service on the weekends won't start till Longbridge's done, you'll be able to, with the VPRA pass, take one of the state-supported trains on the weekend as well, which gets more folks on the highway.
BJ, if I can, I'm one of the testers. I think Jeremy Ladd on our team also is one of Dallas. I'm not sure if you're testing it. Worked yesterday. I hit a couple buttons. It's nice and easily set up. The Amtrak conductor just takes his little phone scanner thingy and zaps it, and it works. So there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes to make that happen. The conductor, but we're testing it out now, so it can. I'm not sure when I'm going into effect, but it's working well. And there'll be 30 seats per Amtrak train, and it shows the train number of seats available, so on and so forth. So it's very handy. So kudos to VPRA and their staff for beta testing it, and I think it's almost ready for roll.
And one of the things that we've looked at is just going back to this. So if you look at the VPRA trains, the VPRA ridership every day is about 3.5 times the Amtrak ridership. So looking at the number of people impacted, we wanted to impact as few people as possible. Many of the folks that ride these trains now that will be stopping in Alexandria, a lot of them get on in Fredericksburg and get off in Occoquan, or get off in Ward, or get off in Alexandria. So their rides won't be impacted. Yesterday morning, I gave a presentation at the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and VPRA had numbers there that I can't quote, but it showed that really the number of people that are impacted will be less than 10% of the riders. They said about 150 people. That's not great. You know, we don't want to impact anybody, but we want to make sure that, number one, we impact as few people as possible, and number two, that we give folks advance notice so they know how the commute's going to change. Mike mentioned earlier that he's now a daily VPRA rider, so he will stand up for me on this. I rode VPRA for 2 decades, and I got on the train 5 o'clock in the morning in Fredericksburg. If I got on the train, and every once in a while, it rarely happened, my seat was taken by somebody else, I would flip. I mean, that's my seat. I take it.
Yeah. One of those, CJ, huh?
Yeah, they're all saying each other. I understand that it's going to impact somebody's commute. We don't make these decisions. Like your other options are, how are we going to get the bridge built?
Like the
we looked at, okay, what if it's a shorter window? This one is 4-hour window, and we can adjust it a little bit. For every hour we take off that window, it costs us $300 million. This is a high level estimate, and it adds at least 6 months to the schedule. And that we just have to have a pace. So we talked about the weekend. It's pretty similar. We're making the same types of proposed decisions. Here, you see all of the projects going on at the same time. We are hoping, and we're working with Amtrak. Amtrak's doing some work in Union Station. As we put this proposed window into place, Amtrak is going to also take advantage of the, hey, there are no trains going through that tunnel. They have identified the tunnel that goes from Union Station out to LaFont. There are ventilation issues. There are switch issues that need to be addressed. Amtrak has already said we're looking at that same window so we can get multiple projects done during this time.
TJ?
Yes.
Is the work window 7 days a week?
The work window is 6 days a week. No work is allowed in DC on Sundays at all.
So is that a normal schedule or will it keep the work window schedule?
It will keep the work window schedule because equipment is talked about. Equipment goes down to where it's going, and then a lot of places spends the night, and then it goes back. In order to go back just for the one day to the quote unquote normal schedule, the equipment would be positioned correctly. It's an excellent point, though. We're well aware that between January 2026 and when the bridge is done in 2030, there are a number of high-profile events that we're going to need more people for. 4th of July in 2026, I think that's a big anniversary.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. The NFL draft is going to be in DC during this time period. Hampton Roads is going to have a huge 250 celebration, Virginia 250. So CSX is going to deliver packages for Christmas and winter holidays. So there are times when we are going to be flexible on these windows to allow traffic. We want to get as many folks off the highway as possible. As I started with, we're still in negotiations with Amtrak and CSX. We want to get bridge done as soon as possible and efficient as possible. This is an incredibly important point. When we agree on the schedule changes, and first of all, we're working hard to get them communicated out to the public sooner rather than later. What we don't want to do is on January 5th say, oh, by the way, starting tomorrow, this is going to happen. We've met with mayors, we've met with city managers, we've been in the transportation organizations, and we'll continue to do that. It's kind of really get mad, but we've got a whole communication plan of who we're talking to and when. It's never good news when somebody gets on that train at 5 o'clock in the morning and somebody's in their seat. But if they know, it's a little bit easier to accept. The point here is, though, after a couple months in January, if things aren't working the way we thought they would, if Amtrak long distance trains are late and they're violating the window, we'll have to look at how we can make adjustments to continue to give that construction team the 5 hours a day they need to get this done. So we're going to be nimble. We're going to continue to make changes as changes make sense. This is, and you've seen this multiple times, this is the service the way it exists now. What we're proposing during the construction window. So the 2 trains to Roanoke, one of those is going to change time. You've got the ones that come down to Richmond, and then the 3 to Norfolk, 2 to Newport News, excuse me. When the construction starts, this becomes 2 in Norfolk. We keep the 2 that are Newport News, so it kind of goes from 5 to 4. That still has the 2. Okay, I misspoke. When the construction starts, this is going to change. This doesn't happen when the construction starts. We don't get to New River Valley till 2027. Don't take it. That happens. But this is what it'll look like during that period. And then the 2 buses that are going to go into play, they'll actually start in Virginia Beach. They'll go to Norfolk, go to Newport News, and then they'll go all the way up to DC. So you will, at anywhere in the roads, you'll be able to take any one of those connections. Additionally, the first train out in the morning will be at 4:30, which is kind of the time it is now. In Newport News, we'll make sure that separate shuttle that gets folks there. So anybody who gets the first train out to beat the window will have the opportunity to do that. And then when Long Bridge is done, 3 trains to Norfolk, 3 trains back to Newport News, and everybody gets their slots back. And then when we finish all of the phase 1 and phase 2 projects, which will be shortly thereafter, then we achieve nirvana and we've got the 13 rounds every single day. And in addition to this, VPRA has the extra slots that they can have not only extra trains, but also nights and weekends. So that is where we are now. We're hoping to, over the next week or 2, come to final agreement with CSX with Amtrak. As is often the case, the closer you get to saying, yeah, we'll sign, there are a lot of questions. Well, did we ask this? Yes, back in February. Did we ask this? Yeah, we talked about it in March. But we're getting to the point where we've got to put pencils down, fully understanding that whatever we put in place in January, we're going to continue to watch and monitor and make sure that it continues to meet the needs of
quick question for just, I think, our education. The South package, right? Most of that work is either in the middle of the river, right? Or in areas where people don't live, right? Did we ever do the analysis to look at actually if we could work outside of these these constrictions, how much further to the left we could pull the calendar, and if so, how much?
Yeah, so we've looked at that and we've actually talked about that. I'm glad you brought that up. We've talked about the fact that I'm not making any judgment on the noise and vibration restrictions. However, if I'm looking at them, they apply a lot more when you're underneath the South Hotel than they do when you're in the middle of the river or on the south end of the river where there are no businesses. Or
no one lives.
No one lives. And I'm not committing to anything. We are looking closely at that. We are hopeful that if there's any lenience, it will be towards that end. That said, even if we get the south package done more rapidly, or we get a little grace and lenience on the south package, we still can't start service until the north package is done, which is where the big fouling issues are. Now, to the extent that it saves us money or frees up, but we're looking at that. Speaking of looking at all options, we're also looking at, okay, fine. So during the work window, you can't go north of Alexandria. VPRA trains are going to Alexandria, letting folks off and take the metro. Can we run other trains that, folks in Fredericksburg that are going to have fewer options? Can we let them have an extra train that goes to Alexandria? Yeah. We would like to do that. We need to make sure that we can do it with Amtrak equipment. They don't have a ton of equipment now, and when you're shoving back like that, if you're pulling into Alexandria going north and then backing into Seminary Yard, you can do that with a locomotive up front. But if you're going to run service, you need a locomotive on both ends or a cab car. And Amtrak just doesn't have them available now. We've had many conversations with Amtrak. They've got the new Aero trains coming, first Pacific Northwest, and then they're coming here. That could free up equipment. I mean, if I were at Amtrak, I wouldn't be committal to this either, but they understand that this is an important need for us. Thankfully, a lot of Amtrak employees work in DC and they sit on 395 every day and curse and scream. And so they know the challenge we have. And we'll continue to work with them to see what options.
Okay. Well, that's great about the South package, right? Because I think that it would be great is that if we can either work with the DC Council, right, to get some kind of understanding about the difference, right? Is that totally understand that noise and vibration when people are living there, but in this element, I mean, you're in the middle of the river and no one lives on either end of the river. If we can accelerate there, have some leniency, right, from the council, because this is also something that they want as well.
Wrongly agree. This infrastructure improvement impacts DC as much as it does us, impacts Maryland, impacts others. And I need to say, for the record, and I'll say it off record, DC has been a great partner. When we first started these conversations, we had to work hard to establish a relationship with them, but that relationship has become quite productive, and they've been very responsive. And we're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Okay.
So somebody asked me how we're communicating this to the public. Jerica will tell you how we're communicating this to the public. That's what it's like.
I'll be happy to do that.
So I'll talk a little bit about our communications and outreach approach. Temporary changes, lasting improvements. We have a dedicated website that will have guides, fact sheets, telling our passengers and the general public FAQs, all information they'll need to know about upcoming service changes and information about Long Bridge and all of the related projects. We've also created a video just introducing the service changes, outlining the animation that DJ showed about the congestion at the Long Bridge and what it'll look like over the course of that work window.
Just spoiler alert, I wanted to narrate that video. It's a computer.
It's not, it is a person on this one.
It's not me.
It's not DJ. I wanted you to do vocal reps because you have to do the presentation. But it is a 4-minute video. So in the interest of time, we have shared it with you all. So please go ahead and watch it. But this video is a great little just introduction of why we are doing work window, why it's needed. And it's the first of a couple of just introducing what we're doing. And then we'll have a series of shorts about navigating what's happening. And then this is just part of the larger effort of what we have going on. So we have, as Jeremy mentioned in August, he has a joint group of folks from VPRA and Amtrak. We have a joint communications working group that we meet with for VPRA, Amtrak, VPRA, and a joint communications plan where we are sharing information. This also goes for the monitoring and evaluation and crisis communications. So the same way they'll be monitoring and working with the construction teams to make sure things go wrong, we'll be doing the same thing on the communication side. But on the proactive communications, working on our digital communication strategies. So like I mentioned, our websites. VRE is working on a website landing, making sure folks know if they're on the app. I think Mike showed me on his app, there's a little pop-up now on the VRE app that lets folks know that service changes are coming.
Bright yellow.
Bright yellow. So,
Status, and the VRE is already telling people that in January, going to be disruptions from 8:15 to.
So implementing a lot of proactive communication strategies, website landing pages. If you go to amtrak.com/Virginia, which is our sitelet, we will also have information about our projects and the upcoming service changes on that. We also are working on a joint media release with VRE, Amtrak, CSX to let folks in the media know what's happening, and we'll put DJ in front of the camera as well. We've also done legislative community leadership and stakeholder outreach. And then we'll have a direct to consumer communications plan as well, including station pop-ups and letting folks know we'll have postcards with QR codes that we'll just hand out at the stations for folks who are the 5 a.m. train riders who just aren't, connected any other way, just to let them know what's going down. And as DJ's mentioned, he's very busy. His schedule is pretty booked. We're putting him out there in front of a lot of organizations. He was at FAMPO this week. He'll be at MBTA, and then other transportation organizations. Some other members of our team are also going out there, so we're not putting them out there alone. We're implementing in all of our just regular construction communications and project communications meetings. We're already having our community advisory groups. We've started adding some information about the service changes. So we have some tags coming up that we'll be talking about it. DJ is doing the town hall with Virginians for High-Speed Rail on the 10th. Christine Fitz, who is our planning director, will be speaking to a meeting of the statewide MPOs coming up. So we have a lot of stakeholder outreach coming up just to make sure we're hitting all of our bases to let as many folks know as possible what's happening. As DJ likes to say, no surprises, and that is the perfect communication strategy, I think. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible. We have our general inquiry, contact us, email inbox. We also have set up a construction inbox and construction line that we have on all of our construction communications. So I think that's all we have, but if you have any answers, any questions?
Any questions?
Can we give a message to MPO? So we're going to have them help us with communications. That Charlottesville area, their train will be delayed a couple hours. Same with Roanoke, Richmond area as well. Richmond's losing a couple trains. There is
not delayed. The schedule will be moved.
Schedule will be moved. Sorry,
I'm going to sit on the train for 2 hours.
Richmond does have Greyhound service.
Like no really great.
Could I make a recommendation? In Northern Virginia specifically, the chambers of commerce are really, I think, big stakeholders. DJ, if we can get maybe not there's somebody. I mean, the DC chamber, the Alexandria, the Arlington, the Fairfax, because those are business people, employers. So I think it'd be great to get in front of them, and they'd want to have you. I think.
Yeah, that's great.
But also include the Virginia Chamber, which is
exactly. No, totally agree. Totally. Yeah.
DJ.
Great audience too. I mean, supporters, but they're also affected. I think it'd be really good.
Yeah, and that's why Virginians for High-Speed Rail, we met with them last week, and they're the same folks that have wanted this stuff to be done.
Yeah.
So getting people to understand, there's going to be temporary advocates to say, here, I understand why we're doing this. This makes perfect sense. That's why we're getting out and getting ahead of the message.
Yeah. I really believe in Northern Virginia. I know they grumble, but when you see that your tax dollars are working for you, that's why, and I've been kind of insistent regarding Long Bridge. When they see it, they really don't grumble as much. I mean, they grumble, but they'd like to see the money working for them.
No, absolutely.
Thinking that it probably would be a good idea to put something together, a handout, if you would. It's a little comprehensive to put in the hands of every state legislator here. Come January or February, I wouldn't do it first off when they come in, because you're going to have a lot of new people. You're going to have a new administration. But if you figure by the time they get midway through the session, they'll be hearing from the public about, with questions about this. And we could have something to put in their hands and say, here's who you contact and here's what's going on. This is complex.
No, that's great. In fact, somebody said to us, they said, hey, why don't you look at not starting these meetings till after General Assembly and that kind of but no, we've got to get them done and we're not going to hide from this. You can't. These are decisions that we, Amtrak, CSX, VRE, and VPRA have to make, and we're going to be very open. No surprises.
DJ doesn't mind getting yelled at.
Exactly. I know about it.
And many of the legislators that work in transportation sit on particularly Northern Virginia, NVTC, MBTA. So they're hearing about this while DJ is presenting.
And in everybody's defense, everybody we present to, they look at it and they say, yeah, that's a challenge. And people get it, but it's communicating it and getting that.
You got transportation committees, both the House and the Senate, that you could present to as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Any other questions or comments? It goes without saying, we thank all of you for your support. And it's not an easy message for us to carry, but in 2030, it's going to be again.
And DJ I'll make sure that DJ gets all the information that we're sending out so you all have it as well.
Yeah.
One more thing, if I can, not a day goes by that DJ doesn't ask me and Jeremy, can we do this? Can we move the word in the window this much or can we have this train? He's always pushing us to, he won't say it.
We didn't talk on Sunday.
Well, no, I think I had some text messages. So he's always pushing us to try to do the best we can for Iraq. That's one you know. He's not going to pat his own back, but I just want you to know that he does a great job of doing that, of really pushing us to think outside the box. So, and some of these points made up here fit in a great ones as well. So thank you to you as well for keep the suggestions coming. We need to get the message out to more people.
The record show the chair didn't recognize you. Anything else?
Thank you, Mike. And thank you to all the board members for your great suggestions. Thank you, DJ and Jerica. We are going to recess for lunch. We are about 10 minutes behind. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes back and we'll take 25 minutes for lunch and come back at 1:05. We are in recess.